Friday, we'll go over the 4 chapters. Monday and Wednesday, I'll maybe talk about some other things. I'm gonna try to have a guest speaker in here, either Monday or Wednesday. Talk about a few things. Any questions? Any ideas, any concerns? Anything you want to talk about?
Classes. This is what my class.
I had one person tell me they were interested in becoming a psychologist or teaching psychology.
Well, that's what I picked
Go to
too for
psychology.
geography.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
No, no one is interested in psychology as a profession?
This is gonna suck.
Sometimes I consider it.
What are some things you could use with a degree in psychology?
Business marketing.
Sure. Why? Why is it useful?
Business marketing, you want to take advantage of people, and then psychology helps you understand how to rank them.
Marketing is how do you create a demand for something, right? Yes.
Counseling?
Counseling, right? You could be a counselor, you can help people. What else? What can you use in the field of psychology as a profession to make money, make it a career?
Have clients,
Hmm?
having clients
For what?
that want to come talk.
Therapy?
Yeah.
Right, you could be a therapist. You could be, so you could be a therapist, you can help people, you can counsel families, counsel married couples, counsel individuals going through their problems. Think of this concept. Everyone needs someone to talk to, right? Each and every one of you, regardless how great you think your life is, need somebody to talk to, right? You need somebody to give feedback and opinions about stuff going on in your life. It doesn't escape anyone. Which we're going to talk about with stress. Stress is universal. No one can pretend like they don't have challenges in life, obstacles, stress, things they got to do, things that are important to them, whatever. So each one of you can always use someone to talk to, and I highly recommend it. I recommend that you guys all seek someone to talk to as you journey through life. It could be a lifelong relationship, with someone that can help you with issues. We all face something that we have to form a trauma, whether it happened in your childhood, in adolescence, in high school, in college, it doesn't matter. But we all need someone to talk to, right? Either it's in a spiritual or religious setting, right? That is all therapy. It's all therapy. We all need it. I put org psychology too. And there's many more. I can name 1,000 different things you can do with it. But you can actually help organizations better use the people within the organization, right? You can better structure how people communicate. Like, oh man, you guys have a good business model here, but it's highly inefficient. The communication between departments, the communications between managers and employees. You can do programs which boost motivation for employees. So think about all that. You can guide, essentially, companies to be more successful, right? You can set up outings for employees, things to boost morale, keep people, retain people so they don't quit the job. You can have people have corporate settings of therapy to help people with their daily lives. Those types of things help retain employees and makes companies a lot better. So org psychology, organizational psychology is huge, huge right now. Any company in the world can use it. Apple, Google, it doesn't matter. As well as a host of other things, right? Me particularly, I'm what's called an international psychologist. I go and I help cultures. I help governments, I help institutions, organizations. I help people. Why is that? Because I understand cross-cultural, the meaning and values people regardless of race, ethnicity, language, superstitions, history, governments, doesn't matter, right? I've been trained to understand everybody's perspective on life, which kind of gives me some sort of armed neutrality about life, right? I try to be as unbiased as possible, regardless of what you look like, where you come from, how much money you have. So yeah, just consider it. Psychology is hugely important in the career sense. I think it actually makes the best managers and leaders. Once again, you understand self, you can understand others. If you understand self to the highest degree, you can understand others to the highest degree, right? Which means you can understand the ugliest of life, serial killers, murderers, and you can understand the greatest people in life, right? Most pious, peaceful people. But one thing, right? So psychologists don't have it figured out. We are great at helping people, absolutely. Typically, why people learn psychology is probably because they're the most, maybe, I wouldn't say screwed up, but they have the most kind of inner turmoil, which makes them analyze self constantly and observe other people and analyze people constantly. Which means I've been doing this as a kid, right? The same dude probably since I was 6 years old, I probably talked the same way. It doesn't matter. I grew up the youngest out of 11 children, which means I had to observe a lot of behavior, right? To observe everybody doing what they want to do, messing up, screwing up, doing crazy stuff, doing great things. And it just gave me a good opportunity. So it just, opportunity, I would say, was the key driver for me. But it doesn't mean that we don't have our issues, because everybody does. So I want to start off, before we get into stress, health, and well-being, right, to tackle a little bit about stressors, triggers, how our body handles these things. But I think it's always best to start off with an idea, a philosophical question. What is well-being? What is a good life for you? Not for me, not for your neighbor, not for your sister, your brother, not for your mom. What is a good life for you? Second of all, what is your purpose? Because if you don't know that, you probably don't know this. What is your purpose in life? Anybody? And maybe, I may not make it too personal, right? Because it always cause everyone to be introverted and not be like, I don't want to say what's the purpose of my life. That sounds too personal. What do we think in general can be some factors of purpose or good life for society? What are some things that are important? What are some factors? What makes a good life?
Being debt free.
Money, right? Because debt is money. If you have money, probably you'll be able to pay your debt, right? Enough money. What else? What makes a good life, or what is purposeful? What is the purpose in most people's lives and goals? All right, I'll just name 3 generic ones: family, God, community. Right? What else? God is important in people's lives. Your family is to be purposeful, meaning you may start your own, and that might be your purpose, right? You continue on the species, you raise children to be decent human beings, right? Sense of community, you wanna build up the community which you came from. You wanna be like, yeah, I wanna go back and, it used to be a crappy place, I wanna build that up to make it better. That might be someone's purpose. Or even a politician, I wanna help the community. I wanna help the city of Chicago, which I grew up, be a politician, change the laws. But back to good life. What makes a good life? For you, I mean, you guys are going to school, right? Education is important. What else? Health, which I probably think is the most important. Right? Because you can have all that and you're like, dude, you got 6 months to live. Good luck being a billionaire. Right? You got $1 billion, that's awesome. Now you're gonna die, it doesn't even matter. Or you're sick, you can't even move around. You go to South Beach and do what? Roll around in your wheelchair? You know, so that's probably number one. But what else?
Jobs. Having a stable job. Having a stable job.
Career? What else? Anything else? Okay, because we're talking about human flourishing. You guys are here to flourish, right? You're here to do stuff. You're here to do stuff so that when they tell your story, you think it's a good story or a story worth telling, right? The story could be over at any moment. It could be over today. But we don't know that. But while we're here, we want to grow. We want to flourish. We want to be quote unquote happy, which is not a real concept in a long span of time. But we want to be content. What does content mean? It means you live in a moment. You live today. Not the millionaire you're gonna be tomorrow. Right? Thinking about the millionaire you're gonna be tomorrow causes stress because you may die today. So the millionaire you might be tomorrow sounds phenomenal in the fantasy world, but you need to conquer today. Tomorrow will settle its own.
My ass gets in here.
issues. Good life, primarily family, God, community, right? These things do, I probably said money needs to be here too. Where would we rank these? In general. Money, family, God, community. What would we rank? What would be number one?
God.
You say God number one?
Then money. And then community. Why would you build a family around a community you wanna be a part of?
Anybody disagree with the order?
Yeah,
What?
I do.
Okay, what?
I would just put my like close family above money.
Okay.
Personally.
And what? Would money be number 3 or number 4?
Money would be number 3.
Number 3. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. Actually, I don't know.
Right? You just, being honest about the situation. Who else disagrees with the order? I say for most of life, this is number 1. Right, I'm just speaking in general terms. let's just say we just doing a study, we're gonna examine 100,000 people. Let's say money is number one. Now is number two. These would be neck and neck. Family and God would be neck and neck. Those would be neck and neck. Why do I say that? How did God, the creator of all existence, all of the entire universe and multiverses, whatever else is out there, right? Gives us a soul. How do you end up last? Because at the end of the day, we have an issue. We have a conundrum. Our conundrum is our conscience. Our consciousness is selfish by nature, which means the only thing we truly care about in a honest sense, not who we think we are or what we want to be. We're truly selfish, right? Overall. And typically we call on God when things go bad, right? In the stress of that. Right? Even the most atheist person would be like, oh God, oh Lord, you know, just naturally. That's just what happened. Right? Jesus Christ. You know, you be atheist. Something bad happens, that's just automatic. Why? That's an interesting study too, to do why people do that. So if we say money's first, it's probably the biggest stressor, right? We're talking about well-being. Being broke is not fun. Not having enough money, being in a crap ton of debt creates a lot of stress. The most stress. Money rules the world. Let's say family is number two because you can't escape it, right? God can always be a choice, right? Whether you reject or accept wherever you are in your life or believe. And community, you probably can't, it's harder to escape. Community means environment. Like, you live there. That's your environment. So how are you gonna really escape? You know, that's your community. Like, oh, that's my culture. It's my people. It's my neighborhood. That's my hood. That's good. Which means that they're probably always gonna be around. Like, that's my brother, that's my mom. Right? You have these, but this is already embedded in you. This was conditioned, right? You didn't have a choice. You were born into the world with a mom, with a dad, with a brother. Money is necessary. God could be a choice. And community is environment. It's kind of hard to escape. So think about it. If that's the reality, right? Not who you want to be or who you think you are, but the reality, that means that we have to do some fine tuning as we go along the journey. And that typically causes a lot of experience. Life is half negative, half bad. Can't be all good, right? So when you get mad at things because they go bad, I think that's pretty typical, that's normal. But can you train your brain to think otherwise? Like, oh well, yeah, that happened, okay, that's horrible. Let me address that and move on. So we talked about how stress can cause disease, stress can cause cancer, stress can cause viruses to attack your immune system even more, right? Like, man, I get a cold all the time now. Hey, you're probably stressed out, right? You're more susceptible for bacteria and viruses to attack your immune system. You're sending stress signals to your body. And you're making yourself even more sick. Talked about last class cancer, heart disease, inflammation. These things are all caused by stress. Stress signals sent to the body to create these issues. Talked a little bit about anger management, individualist cultures. What culture we live in here in the United States? Individualist or collectivist?
Individual.
Yeah, right? It's all about me. For the most part, right? You know, we drew a bell curve or whatever. So we live in an individualistic culture, which creates stress for us, because it changes the way we think and our brain structure about what's important in life. Which means what's important for most people is not building up your family, not building up your community, it's about building up yourself. And with that, you alienate people, right? Which means you're just trying to have more resources and accomplishments than the next person, as opposed to the collective thing. Hey, we're all successful, we're all one team. This poses a huge problem because it creates envy, deception, lies. It just creates a very bad environment, right? You could clearly just go on social media and say like, oh man, everybody's promoting what they have, what they did, how great of a trip they took, right? Which creates venting rages in our culture, right? Let's say we saw that with Will Smith. We used the Will Smith analogy, right? What was that about? I mean, Will Smith laughed at the joke. 2 seconds later, look at his wife. Wife didn't give a good response. He felt entitled that he's Will Smith. He could walk up on the stage, slap somebody in front of 3 billion people watching the show, casually walk back to a seat, sit back and, shout out a few profanities. And then sit through the whole show, enjoy it, laugh, clap, and then go get an award, cry about it, and then everybody give him a standing ovation. So in our culture, we begin to start to normalize, right? We start to make things normal. Like, it's not a big deal, right? They only killed 20 people, that's not a big deal. Who cares? Which means we don't care about it unless we care about it. Right? We don't care about the community. If it doesn't impact us, right, who cares? Typically, people say, who cares? Right? Who cares? Move on to something else that I care about. Right? That's a typical response. So you begin to normalize rages, venting rages for what people may not like, right? Even words that cause people to cause physical harm to another. Right?
To go get a background check.
Who can't handle that stress? You can't handle being triggered. Catharsis is emotional release, right? Which is sort of self-therapy. How are you managing your emotions? How are you regulating your emotions? Right? That's catharsis. What are you doing to manage your emotions on a daily basis? Are you offended? And if you're offended, why? Are you offended just to be offended? Are you offended because the rest of society is offended? Do you feel you gotta join the team, right? Or are you offended because you actually thought about some stuff? Right? So catharsis, emotional release. Failure to cleanse rage can magnify anger if you don't have catharsis, emotional release. Can magnify anger, behavior feedback research, which is kind of, think of a sense of school shootings, right? Well, how did it get to that point? How did it get to that point that somebody gets bullied in class, made fun of, they're ostracized, they're introverted, they're just isolated from the rest of the class or the group or the school, and they finally get fed up and come and do what they do. Here, because there was no emotional release. An emotional release built up over time to the point we say stress breaks. Your body only sends a certain amount of resources to handle stress. If you perpetuate and keep going on, eventually it breaks like a rubber band, right? And you lose it. You're like, how did that person, what happened? They just went crazy. Yeah. There was no emotional management there. They didn't cleanse their rage. They didn't work on emotions, right? Or behavior feedback. Someone to tell you about your, even tell you about your behavior. Which parents, I think, should do, right? Sometimes people in school may tell you about your behavior. People at church, your friends, primarily your friends, because they probably know more of the real you, right? Outside of the home. mom and dad don't know all the crazy stuff you're doing. You're not gonna tell them, because they're not gonna accept it. You think they won't accept it, because you think they're different. But once again, we just said, you know, we project that parents haven't gone through what we've gone through, and it's like, no, that's kind of silly. You know what I mean? Like, they had you, so obviously they, you know, they've, you know, done a lot of stuff in life that you're doing, right? Probably even more, they got a job, real money, place to live, know how to pay bills, know how to talk to people to get to places they need to be. So, parents are good for emotional release because they honestly care. You know, your parents are, you know, you don't think they care, they do. You know, it's just a natural bonding for, I say 98%, there are 2% out there that probably don't have that bonding mechanism. And then we said backfire potential. Right? No emotional release, builds up, rubber band breaks, shoots up the school. That's how it happens with school shooters. Anger management strategies, wait. Why is wait important? Why we need to wait to manage anger. Right? Think about it. Will Smith didn't wait. He could have waited a couple minutes to think about it. I guarantee you probably wouldn't have did that. You know? If you don't wait, you don't have hindsight. And hindsight's 20/20, right? Not the present moment's 20/20. Present moment is very emotional and just quickly react. But if you wait, you might think differently, right? Instead of just quickly responding. Healthy distractions or support, which kind of hobbies, you know, which is kind of what I always tell people. You know, pick up a new hobby. You have a lot of stress, a lot of emotional things going on in your life. Try to do something new. Play tennis. I'm gonna try it. Play chess. You know, go ride a bike. Get into a group. Read a book. Which is always helpful, right? Or support, which means talk to somebody. That's the highest form of support. You know? Which is, I think, kind of one of the earliest, you know, even let's say scripture, right? Scripture sort of identifies the earliest forms of therapy, right? And many churches later on can say like, go to confession, right? We'll use confession. Right, go to confession for what? Right? Now we understand the scripture, we need to say, oh, okay, the act of forgiving sins. It's not the priest or the person there on the other side forgiving the sin. That's not what it's about at all. That person has no power in there, right? The power is the act of telling. It's the act of telling something intimate, truthful about yourself, so that you can actually think about it and reflect on it. There's the power. The power is an invisible power. It's not between two people, you know. And that's sort of the first form of therapy. So we say therapy, how do you correct yourself? How do you correct your behavior? You talk to somebody. When you talk to somebody, something magical happens, which means they get feedback and you get a glare into you that you didn't see before. You get some new information about yourself, which means we can't solve all of our own problems, right? You can't do it all by yourself, which lends to a truth of family and community. But hey, what's so important about this? Well, I mean, they understood this 10,000 years ago, that it's important. Because you can't truthfully help yourself to the highest degree, right? Very few people can do that. I'm not saying it's impossible. You can become a monk and disappear for 30 years or whatever. But work on yourself. But for the most part, for most people, family or community is important because we need support. We need help. We need a different perspective. You know, a different perspective about us. Cope. We all cope and we all defend. which we call coping mechanisms, defense mechanisms to deal with stress. Right? Let's say someone calls you out about something. You're like, that's not me. That's not who I am. Why would you say that? But we know it's true deep down. What we're doing is defending. We're putting up an armor of BS to deal with the stress of being honest with ourselves, right? That's stressful. Like, it's stressful because we see ourselves in a certain way, right? Remember we said there's probably maybe 3 selves in the self, right? Called the id, ego, super ego, all acting on one, which is your innate desires, right? That's the id. That's your biological mechanisms. We're driven towards sex. We're driven towards greed. We're compulsion towards all these things, right? And then there's the super ego, and there's the ego. The ego is typically using that drive for things to do within society. We need to gain money. We need to gain people. We need to have relationships, have power. We think we're the greatest people of all time within the context of society. Totally not true. And then we have the super ego to regulate, which means some people have big egos, some people have big super egos. They're very moral, very ethical people. They don't have those ego problems. But we use all that to cope. So we're trying to hide the ego, right? We're kind of shielding the ego, right? Our self-innate drive to just gain for self, not be accountable for anything. I wasn't responsible for that. That wasn't me. I'm not accountable for that. I'm gonna use a scapegoat. Somebody else did, right? We don't want to be accountable because accountable is vulnerable to stress. Like, I don't want to create that stress, so I'll just create BS, right? And I'll just use it as a shield. So you alleviating stress using emotional, cognitive, and behavioral methods. Whatever methods people use. They say like, hey, how am I gonna cope with being unemployed? How am I gonna cope with being an abusive person, right? Like, I'll just take drugs. And I'll keep taking drugs. And I'll keep taking drugs. And every day, hopefully the drugs in the 24-hour period are enough so that I don't have to ever address the situation. Unfortunately, that puts a lot of issues on your body, which causes you to probably die at an early age because you're deregulating the natural process of the human body. Problem-focused coping, attempting to alleviate stress directly by charging the stressor or the way we interact with that stressor. Give me an example. Anybody give me an example? Directly alleviating stress. Let's say school's a stress. You're like, oh man, school is stressful. How could you directly alleviate it? You stop going to school today. You quit. No more stress from school. Okay? Hey, this relationship is stressful. What do? You break up. Yeah, you break up. This job is very, very stressful. What do?
Quit.
You quit. Right? You directly alleviate the stress. You change the stressor or the way that you interact with that stressor. Or you can say, hey, I'm gonna take less classes. It's too stressful. 5 classes is too much, 4 is too much, let me take 2. And maybe I'll take 2 over the summer. It balances out. Therefore, I'm still on pace to graduate at the time I want to graduate. Emotion-focused coping, attempting to alleviate stress by avoiding or ignoring the stressor, by attending to emotional needs related to our stress reaction. Give me an example of that. Yeah, absolutely. Therapy. Addressing emotional needs right then and there. Right? Not avoiding it, not ignoring it, which most of us do. We ignore it, we hide it, you know, we bury it, we'll come back to it later. Not understanding that it kills us over time, right? So really the good life is probably the life with the least amount of stress, right? And for some people, they've taken away all those factors we set up on the board earlier to help alleviate a lot of stress, right? Which means that their goals are completely different than most people's. They don't need the money. They keep family at a distance. The family causes them stress, right? Because we can't really change people, but we can change how we interact with people. You know, hey, I want to get in this relationship, and I think I could change them. I think I can make that person great. I think I could see them out to their potential. Like, that's pretty foolish. No one truly changes anyone. Change only comes essentially from within, you know. So we're always hopeful. I hope, and hope is good. Hope is a good driver. It keeps us going. Without hope, we probably won't get up tomorrow to do anything. Hope is good, but we have to also be realistic. People rarely change past a certain point in life. Once you get to adulthood, you are 99.9% the same person you would be when you're 90 years old, from 21. That's how few people change, you know, which I always say, you know, the most important part is 0 through 6, 7. That's it. Now through high school, yeah, you can pick up a little bit more cues to be an adult, and then you get into, you know, sex and drugs, and you try out all these things, and yeah, that's cool. That adds on maybe 20% of it, but about 80% is as a kid. Once that part, that's why it's so important. 2-parent households, we think that stuff don't matter. It absolutely matters. Environment matters. What environment you grew up in? You grew up in toxic environment. 99% chance you'll probably be a toxic person, right? Not saying it's impossible to get out, but it's extremely difficult unless you have something built in called resiliency, and that's sort of a natural thing, right? You're like, oh, how did the kid from the projects go to Harvard and become the smartest man alive? And everybody else around him was on drugs or in jail. How did that? Well, that person was naturally resilient. You know, you could put them in any environment, in a war-torn environment. They still would have been successful. But it's not something they picked up along the way, right? That's a built-in mechanism. Which plays into fortune, right? You're like, hey, what's the key factor to success? Is it hard work? Absolutely not. How to be successful, you want to make all the money in the world and be successful in your profession. Oh, hard work pays off. Right? We've heard that a billion times. I wouldn't say absolutely, but I would say it's very minimal. Smart work pays off. How efficient are you? Right? When I was an MBA student, throughout every course I had as an MBA student, I had the book online. I knew somebody who could get these books, and I sold them all to the class. So you got to figure 35 students. I sold it to them at a 40, 50% discount. Made a crap ton of money. Why? Why would I be a business student if I wasn't about making money? Right? That was the point of being there. So I did that the entire program, 2 years. Is it right? Is it wrong? I don't know. That's subjective. I knew it was right for their pockets and for their budgets, and I felt like I was actually doing a decent thing by them not having to give the bookstore, what I consider to be overvalued money, overvalued book, right? Coping with stress, perceived loss of control, losing personal control provokes stress hormone output. In what situations do we have very little control? Yeah, right, we go walk outside, we don't know what's gonna happen, right? A brick falls down from the building, hits you in the head because they didn't do the masonry update. All we can say is, man, that's highly unfortunate, right? That's it, that's all we can say about that. But losing personal of you provokes stress hormone output. Hey, they just broke up with me. They dumped me. They ghosted me. They did whatever. They kicked me off the team for whatever reason. I'm done. Will your world come crashing down? Will you be completely stressed? Will your health start to fade about all of this? Will you be thinking incessantly about the reasons why people do this to you? You can. I don't know what you're going to gain from it. You'll probably be hurting yourself more than helping yourself, which means that you control it. Right? And we kicked off the team. Oh well, I've got another team. Or the world is over. My world is over. I had so many hopes and dreams because of this. That's up to you. You control that. Right? Rising stress hormone levels related to blood pressure, increase in immune response. We talked about that. Learned helplessness, uncontrollable bad events, which is environment. You live in a pretty crappy environment, everything is bad. Literally everything is bad. Okay? Perceived lack of control, I mean you haven't actually thought about what happened and think if you actually have more control than what you think. Generalized helpless behavior, which means you just play a victim to everything. Everything you're a victim to. Right? The world is totally against you. Your family's against you. Your job's against you. You can have those perceptions. Are they true? Probably not. External locus of control. I think that means loss. Post-traumatic stress symptoms, chance for outside forces controlling fate, which are just kind of the aftermath of going through things in life, right? We have symptoms because we haven't addressed what happened. Hey, I went to war, I had to kill 30 people, and now I come back and I can actually, what I thought I was doing was, quote unquote, according to everybody else, I was brave, I was courageous, I'm a hero to my country. Excellent. Now you gotta come home and sleep on it. Now that you're out of the military, you come home, you sleep on it every night, you probably replaying all these times you shot a person and killed them, or maybe even killed children. And now you really start to formulate why you did it. You may have did it because of government orders, military orders, you were ordered to do so. Now you have more time to think about why you were ordered to do so. And the people who had their hand in that, right? And now you have to deal with post-traumatic stress. You took human life and now you got to deal with it the rest of your life. And later on in life you realize it was a horrible thing to do. Now you're an activist promoting anti-war. Now you're a peaceful person. You tell other people it's all BS, right? One team versus the other, one country versus the other, one ideology versus the other. And children die, elderly die. But at the time we do it, we're heroes and brave and courageous. People control their own fate, which is internal, free will, willpower, self-control. Right? So if you have internal, what they call locus of influence. You will determine that people control their own fate. I don't believe that is to be true, right? Because the biggest factor to success is what? And we just said hard work, a sort of, that's a feel-good sort of expression, but it's not true. Smart work, right? Efficient, being able to see opportunities when the others don't. But what's the biggest form of being successful in life? What's the biggest factor? What's the biggest factor in being successful in everything you do, or just in life in general?
Consistency.
You can be persistent, persistent. I do think that that is up there. Yeah. I think that's even more so than hard work. Because hard work doesn't mean smart work, right? But persistency means that you're not going to stop until you get what you want, which is great. You know, you might not get exactly where you thought it was, but you'll get, maybe get close. The biggest thing in life is luck. Like, how did they end up there? Luck. 50% is luck. More than 50% is luck. Right? Remember I told you about Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett, greatest investor in human history. Right? And they asked him, how did you do it? He said, most of it was luck. They couldn't understand. It's like, explain, what do you mean? He said, I was born where I was born. I'm born to the family that I was born into. I had opportunities that people did not. Right? And I had doors open that people did not have doors open for. And that's true. Right? So your luck is basically, hey, where were you born? Who's your family? Who's your parents? What neighborhood? How much money you guys were born into? Right? Who do you know? That all matters. So it's not the most talented people by far. No, there's probably people who play basketball better than Michael Jordan. But their environment or their luck probably didn't make it conducive for them to actually get there. Right? The environment could have been really poor and they didn't have the opportunity to even get to high school, go to college, be recognized by everybody. So think about that. Luck is a huge, we can use other words for it. We could say opportunity. I like to use opportunity. You know, opportunity is the biggest factor. Which means that if you want to work to have great luck, you gotta try to access every opportunity available. And that's what truly makes people